Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TradeStation Masterclass. Sorry for the late start here. I was trying to set up my files and got sidetracked. So I want to welcome everyone to this masterclass. Today's topic is all about easy language and how you can use some of the programming syntax that is used on the TradeStation platform to enhance analysis techniques and also create your own custom indicators and strategies. Today, we're going to talk about something interesting, which is counting events and conditions. A lot of times as traders, we want to count how many times something has happened. For example, if we were looking at higher highs or lower lows, or finding out stocks that have a sequence of higher highs or lower lows would be interesting. Or maybe if you're looking for conditions to happen within a set of bars, counting how many times that event has happened or how long ago that event has happened, maybe there's a benefit to that. So that's what we're going to focus on today. How can we use easy language to do that precisely? So before we get started, the usual introductions. My name is Jesus Nava. I'm the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities, and we have to go through some of the disclosures. Just keep in mind that every symbol and idea that I talk about is for educational purposes only. These are not recommendations of TradeStation, so please be aware of that. Active trading is not suitable for everyone, and past historical performance is no guarantee of any future results. So make sure that you read our disclosures. The link is right there in the PowerPoint slide, www.tradestation.com/important-information. My colleague Manolo has shared that link in the chat as well. You can click right from there. Manolo is also going to be actively moderating the chat. So if you need anything, any files or any questions answered, make sure that you communicate with us through the chat. We want to make this session as interactive as possible. So let's go ahead and introduce the topic of counting events and using variables. For those that are not familiar with TradeStation, TradeStation is highly customizable. You're not only limited to what comes built into the platform or things that are out of the box. For example, if you were looking for MACD, Bollinger Band, RSI, of course, you're going to find those indicators inside of the TradeStation platform. But the ability for you to take those indicators and maybe do some modifications and enhance the calculation, that's something that TradeStation allows you to do. Not only modifying things that are already existing, but also, bringing in your own ideas and translate them into language that TradeStation can understand. And that's the beauty of easy language, that it allows you to pretty much do anything you want in terms of technical analysis and strategy backtesting. The possibilities are pretty much endless here. So we're going to use variables in easy language to count specific events. We're going to start and maybe showcase a couple of examples so that you can see how you can set up your easy language to keep track of something that happens. We are going to need a way, first of all, to declare a variable so that easy language knows what it is. Then we need to tell it, okay, what is the action that we want to keep track of? And also a mechanism to set the counter back to zero. If you're counting higher highs, and every time that you find a higher high than the previous one, it increments the counter by 1. At a certain point, you're not going to have that higher high, and you need that mechanism to reset that counter back to 0. Counters can count up or down into the negative values. If you want to know lower lows and designate a negative value for that, you can also keep a counter by subtracting 1 rather than adding 1, which gives you negative numbers. An example, here's just an example. And by the way, the PDF link that Manolo just shared in the chat is exactly what I'm showing to you right here on the screen. So make sure that you download that PDF. If you're having issues with any of the links that we are providing, Manolo, please share or put in the email address of our education team right in the chat, so that if anybody has issues, they can email us. And so Kevin tells us that the document may be created incorrectly. Let me click on the link myself to see what I get. Yep. I get an error. So maybe the link is not, I'm not sure why it's not working. So Manolo, can you check the link and make sure that, first of all, that you can open up the PDF that I sent you. And secondly, let's go ahead and create a new link because I'm also getting that error. So thank you for pointing that out, guys. All right, so this is an example. I'm not really sure how familiar you are with Easylanguage, but remember, this is our masterclass series. So I'm going to assume that you have at least some foundational understanding on how to build Easylanguage. And if not, it's okay, because I think the concepts are simple enough for you to grasp them, and then you can follow up and and practice on your own platform and make it happen. In Easylanguage, you have to declare variables, and the word you see here, VARs, it's an abbreviation of the word variables, a colon, and then you have this variable name, which is higher high count, which is a made-up word. So when we create variables, we want you to be creative and create your own words. And the fact that you're declaring them just makes the language understand that this is a word that you're going to start using, and anywhere you use it in your code is going to have a specific meaning. Now, that default meaning, it's 0 in parentheses, meaning that this variable is of numeric type, and the value that it's going to hold is a number. That's what the 0 in parentheses means. It's like you are declaring a word and you're telling Easylanguage what type of variable it is. Once we do that, then we set the conditions. If the high is greater than the high 1 bar ago, then notice how the counter works. Higher high count equals higher high count plus 1. So if we are at a starting point of 0 and our condition is true, where you find a high that is higher than the previous high, then we know that our counter is going to be incremented by 1. Otherwise, higher high count equals 0. This is the resetting mechanism that we talked about. If the condition is not true, then reset my counter back to 0 so that it starts from scratch. And this is the way that we're going to set up our counters inside our code to keep track of those conditions, okay? If higher high count greater than 0, then we plot it, because you do want to know if there's a sequence of higher highs, you want to know what that number is. If you get a 5, you know that there's been 5 consecutive higher highs. If it's 0, then you're back on square one. So this is very simple code. It's inside of your PDF. You can, type it up exactly as it appears here, and then you have an example on how to use a counter. We have a question here. Yeah, we'll upload the file to the chat in just a moment. All right. Variables do work the same for all kinds of studies. So the behavior is going to be pretty much the same. We have different types of variables. We have numeric, true, false variables. We have string variables. So they are going to behave very similarly. What I suggest you do when you write your own code is that you test it and see the different values that are being printed. There's a print command inside of Easylanguage that allows you to print the values to a text file that allows you to debug your system and make sure that whatever values you're expecting the variables to hold is exactly what they are, okay? All right, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide here. I think it has a different example. This is a nice concept because when we talk about counting events or keeping track of things that have happened, it's important that we know how far ago they happened. A lot of times, we are combining different technical ideas. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're keeping track of a moving average cross, that can be it can be either bullish or bearish, but at the same time, you want to look at the RSI and make sure that the RSI is within certain values, So there's two technical indicators that need to align in order for you to take a certain action. That's pretty much what this slide is alluding to, where you have multiple technical ideas that need to happen in alignment for you to take some action. Now, to have those technical ideas align and provide a signal at the same time on the same bar may be very difficult and rarely happens on a chart. So you have to give yourself a little bit of flexibility and say, well, if the moving average cross happened 3 bars ago and my RSI condition happened 5 bars ago, I would take that as a signal. So you have a little bit of flexibility as to when in history or real time that condition happened. So this is exactly what this means, or what this paragraph is talking about. And it's something that, and the counting setups that we talked about are going to help you keep track of how long ago something happened. And this is an example syntax also. It's using cross bars ago. The syntax you see here, the plus equal, is the same. It's the same thing as spelling it out. Previously, or in the previous example, we saw a counter of bars and it used the variable after the equal sign again. So in this case, instead of saying cross bars ago plus equal 1, it would say, cross bars ago equals cross bars ago plus 1. So rather than spelling, the variable a second time, you can use the plus equal syntax, and it's exactly the same thing. It just keeps track or incrementing that variable as the condition is true. So notice the condition, if MACD, this is using MACDIF as an example. This is the MACD. And when the MACDIF crosses over 0, crossbars equals 0. If MACDIF crosses under 0, then crossbars ago equals 0. This is the resetting of the counter. Otherwise, this line of code is just going to keep on adding 1 to crossbars ago until the condition happens. This is the syntax that is used. By the way, this is the end of my PowerPoint. Yes, it is. Okay. This is the syntax that is used in a lot of the indicators that gives you bars ago. Let me show you what they are, and we'll take a look very quickly at their Easylanguage to see how they're built. Let me go over to my platform. I'm going to open up a new workspace and pull up radar screen right here. All right, I see the question from Igor. Does Easylanguage allow setting the time interval between events? I haven't seen many indicators that set a time frame based on events, but it's something that we can look into. I know there's a command that can be run inside of Easylanguage that changes that time frame. So maybe it's something we can look into. What I suggest, for any questions you guys have about Easylanguage and the capabilities and whether something's possible or not, most likely it is. And I say most likely because I cannot guarantee everything, but most likely it is possible. But I would ask you to post a question in the Easylanguage forums. Manolo, if you have that link, I'm not sure if you do, Manolo, but there's a link to the Easylanguage support forums that we can share here in case somebody doesn't know where it is. Okay. So what I was going to do is I want to list, add a list of symbols here, and I'm going to add the MACD, the one we were talking about. Let's go here to MACD. Here it is, MACD. I'm going to add it. Let me move it all the way down and click OK. So this is the MACD indicator that comes built into TradeStation, and you can see that one of the columns says cross bars ago. So this is the concept that we were just talking about. It keeps track on when was the last time that MACD crossed over 0 or under 0. So that, this is a valuable number because we can sort by that number and see the ones that are 0, meaning that they were reset just now. So they're crossing today, or at least on the current bar, or double click again to see the ones that have crossed the further back. So this, for example, this symbol, monster, crossed to go 42 bars ago. Now this is on a 5-minute interval, but I can change this to a daily, and this will calculate on a daily time frame. And again, double click. These are the ones that are crossing today, and double click. And now we have one stock here Broadcom that crossed to go 32 bars on the negative side. So this stock has been negative for 32 straight days. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at writing a study that keeps track of a counter. Let me go here to apps and let's go to Easylanguage. All right, so I'm going to start off a new indicator. All these Easylanguage classes that we do, we always do an example in class and we code the indicator together so that we can walk through the different steps. So I'm going to come over here to the top left of my Easylanguage editor. I'm going to click on the drop down of this new little paper toolbar button. If I just click on the paper toolbar button, it'll just create the last type that I used. But I want everyone to get into the habit of clicking on the drop down to make sure that you start off with the right type of indicator. Because if I'm creating an indicator that plots values on radar screen or a chart, I have to make sure that I select the right type. We have indicators, we have strategies, we have show me's, and I say be careful because a lot of times if you select strategy, that's not the way that you create a charting or a radar screen indicator. So I'm just going to do a regular indicator. Most of the calculations that you're going to create custom are going to fall inside of this category indicator. So this will be, it's going to prompt me to provide this a name. I'm going to call this @MC streak. And I'm going to call it streak because I'm going to keep track of higher closes or lower closes. So, and somehow rank symbols that have the highest number of higher closes or lower closes. And we're going to call that streak. Okay. I start the names with an @MC, MC for masterclass, and @ because those are sorted to the very top if you use a special character like the @ sign. Okay. For this indicator, yeah, we want the indicator to be in both. So I'm just going to leave it like that. So this is what we're going to do. In our calculation, we are going to, let me just set just a moment. All right, so we're going to do this example. All right, so that says, well, the first thing that we're going to do is declare our variable, right? So variable, and we're going to do an up count and a down count. You don't necessarily have to separate them. We don't necessarily need two counters. In this one, I just want to make sure that I keep track of higher closes and lower closes, and that's the reason why I'm declaring two variables. Also keep in mind that the variables are made up words. That's why we need to declare them. And the declaration starts with the word variable, a colon, and then you list all the different variables you're going to be using. Semicolon at the very end is the end of my statement, and that allows me to go into the next line. So the next step here is defining what up count and down count is. And up count and down count are going to be defined based on what's happening to the prices of the chart. So if I have higher closes, I'm going to modify up count. And if I have lower closes, I'm going to modify down count. So I'm going to start my code with an if-then statement. This is an if-then condition. If it's true, something will happen. And if it's false, something else will happen. So if the close, meaning the close of the bar, is greater than the close 1 bar ago, this is a historical reference. Whenever you use a pricing reserved word like close, it's the closing price of the bar, and you put a number inside square brackets, it's just letting Easylanguage know, I want you to take the close but of the bar, that number ago. So this is 1 bar ago. So if you have a 10 there, it would be 10 bars ago. But if the close is greater than the close 1 bar ago, then up count equals up count plus 1. Every time that you get that condition, it's going to add 1 to the up count. And this is my reset. I'm going to say else up count equals 0. So I keep a counter, keeps on counting up. As soon as the condition is not true, then it just resets the counter to 0. Does that make sense? And I can do both sides of my indicator. I took care of up counts Now I'm going to do the down count. So I'm going to say if the close is less than the close of 1 bar ago, then down count equals down count. And in this case, I'm going to do -1 because I do want the indicator to be negative if it has, consecutive lower closes. If the condition is false, that's why the word else. If the condition is true, do this, else do that, right? So down count equals 0. So we have the counters, and then we have the resetting mechanism that makes sure that it resets it when the condition is not true, okay? So here we're just going to do the plot statement. If up count is greater than 0, and the syntax here, if up count is greater than 0, is just to make sure that the variables are giving me a value, that have been calculated correctly, and I have a good starting point. It doesn't really add anything to the indicator. It just makes sure that I don't have any of these, any type of erroneous plots or any type of weird, things going on the chart. I just want to make sure that that the indicator waits until it has valid values in order to start plotting. So if the up count is greater than 0, then begin. And I'm going to do this. Plot 1, and we're going to do okay, so this is where we get to a little bit tricky. So we have to play a little bit around with the syntax. If up count greater than 0, let's do this. Then plot 1 equals the up count, right? And then we're going to do else plot 1 equals down count. Let's verify this. Okay, this verifies correctly. I want to talk about the code, so just to make sure that we are all aware of what's going on here. I may have to, copy this code and paste it into the chat so that everyone has access to it. And I may export it and make it available as an ELD so that you can download it and import it into your TradeStation directly. Roman, Easylanguage is not case sensitive. So you can see that sometimes I capitalize up count, sometimes I don't. It's something that, Easylanguage doesn't keep track of. You can type your code in all caps or lowercase. It just enhances readability for you. So no, it's not case sensitive. And it also doesn't mind about the spacing. Notice that I skipped line number 9, number 14. I have some indentation. I broke some lines up. So it doesn't really matter how you structure your code. The spaces are unimportant to Easylanguage as well. I'm just, spacing everything out so it's a little bit more readable. So let's go ahead and verify this. I already did. Verification is like the process of Easylanguage checking your code and making sure that it works nicely and you're able to use it. It may not be able to catch any calculation errors, but at least, you have all the pieces and all the Easylanguage pieces in place, and it just somehow makes it doesn't encounter any errors. So let's go ahead and put this indicator inside. Well, before I put this indicator onto radar screen, I'm going to do something to it. I'm going to go here, right click on it, and go to properties, because indicators, when you first create them, they tend to be, or they try to be as efficient as possible. So they won't load additional data for cumulative calculations. So for this type of indicator that is keeping track of higher closes and lower closes, we have to give the indicator some historical data. Otherwise, if we don't, it'll just look 1 bar ago, and that's all that it'll keep track of. So this is the type of indicator that accumulates values, and it's important that we come here and we load additional data. I'm going to load an additional 100 bars. Okay, so that's important for this type of indicator. I'm going to click OK, and then verify one more time. Let's go over here to my TradeStation, and let me remove a few columns that I don't need here. Okay, And I'm just going to add it here on the right hand side. This is the one that I just created, or the radar screen that I just created a moment ago. And I'm going to scroll to the very top and look for @MC streak. Let's add it, and I'm going to click OK. All right, so we have an indicator going on here. So that's a good thing. So it seems to be working. My indicators are set to, or my symbols are set to daily. Let me remove a few more columns from here. I may just remove the MACD altogether because I want to bring up a chart here on the right-hand side so that we can compare our indicator. Let me go to apps, click on chart analysis. All right. I'm looking at a daily chart, at least on the radar screen. So let's go ahead and set this to daily. Link the two windows together. And let me go ahead and sort by streak. All right, so we have this stock, end phase energy, that has a -10. And if you look at the price activity, recently, you can see that playing out for us exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can see that the closing price is starting on this bar went down, 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 down. So we have 10 consecutive lower closes. Now, if we double click again, we can see the top ones. So Amgen, if we click on this, then has 4 consecutive higher closes, starting from here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So very nicely, I'm able to find these stocks that have these consecutive, higher closes or lower closes. There's a few things that I'd like to do to my indicator. For example, if you are, let me go back here to my code. Okay, so this is keeping track of closes that are, higher than the previous bar and then closes that are lower than the previous bar. So what happens if you are in an up count, you're getting higher, 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 and all of a sudden you get a close that is equal to the close of one bar ago? What would that look like, If we set this to greater than and equal to, just like that, that is not really a solution because we would have to do the same thing on the down counter. So what we're saying is on the equal sign, it's going to increment up count and it's going to decrement down count. And that's not exactly what we want. If we are in an up count, if we're counting up and we have a series of higher closes, and all of a sudden we get a close that is exactly the same as the previous one, but then after that it continues to go up, I don't want to reset the counter to 0. I want this to continue to count going up. So even though the two closing prices were the same, the fact that I'm in an up count, I would count that as an up count as well. So I have to include that scenario inside my code so that it doesn't reset the counter back to 0 because it was not greater than, it's equal to. So can we put that into our code? Of course we can. So if the close is greater than the close one bar ago, and I'm going to open up a parenthesis here to provide a different condition. So if the close is greater than the close one bar ago, which seems to be working nicely, or if, and I'm just going to add here, or up count is greater than 0, meaning that you are already on a positive number and the close is greater than or equal to the close one bar ago, make sure that you get the square brackets and the parentheses correct. So what I'm trying to do, 2 conditions. This is our simple condition. This is our more, thought out condition that if you are already in an up count positive number and you get a close that is greater than or equal to the close of one bar ago, then I want to still count that as an up count. Does that make sense? So on the other side, let me copy this and then change my conditions to the down count. So this is if we are on a down count that is less than 0, meaning that you're on a negative number, it's already counting down. And then you get a close that is less than or equal to the close 1 bar ago, then I want you to count that also as a negative number. Let's go ahead and verify this. And let's go back to our code. So now something changed. Let's go ahead and double click. So still, end phase is the one that has the most consecutive lower lows. So it doesn't seem like that it changed. So we haven't met that condition yet. But in the scenarios where we would find a closing price that is the same as the prior one, it's still not going to reset that, and it'll just continue to increment or decrement those numbers. Okay. Yes, Mohammed. The property change that I made is to make my radar screen download more historical data than it does by default. Some of the indicators that you create in Easylanguage, especially those for radar screen, are going to try to be as efficient as possible. And it's going to look at my code and see that I'm only making historical references that go 1 bar back. If that's the case, that's all the data that it's going to download and use. So it's not going to be able to keep track of a counter unless I tell it, hey, look back more data. So what I did is I right-clicked on it. I went to Properties, and on the General tab, I checked this box that says Load Additional Data, so that I'm forcing the indicator to load more. And I'm just putting a number here, 100, because on a daily time frame, 100 bars can be downloaded very easily. And if there's a streak that is that long, that would be impressive. But you can see that the streaks that we found in the market right now, at least for the NASDAQ 100, they don't go higher than 10 on the negative side or higher than 4 on the positive side, but anything could happen. But if you wanted to rank symbols based on how often they've incremented or decremented based on a counter, this is a great way to do it. Okay. Let me go ahead and check. Another thing that I would like to do, it's probably set some coloring here so that I know which ones are up and which ones are down. Somehow enhance the visual, and that way you get a nicer looking indicator. I probably don't need the decimal places either. So let me show you how you can modify those. Let me go here to my Easylanguage. First, I'm going to go to Properties and get rid of those decimals. I'm going to go here to the grid style. The plot is a number, and I don't want decimal places. And I'm just going to click OK and verify this one more time. And I'm also going to add some color. So when the up count is greater than 0, then begin. I'm going to plot 1 up count, and I'm going to set plot color of plot number 1. Set plot. Let's do the BG color. BG color is the background color. And I'm going to make the background, if you're in an up count, I'm going to make it dark blue. Okay. And else begin. I have to do this for both sides. I'm going to do the plot 1 up count and then set plot BG color. This is a nice reserved word for you to remember. And it's reserved because it comes up blue. Anything that comes up blue inside of Easylanguage is something that the language recognizes. It's something that has a set meaning. And if you use it, Easylanguage knows exactly what to do. So these are words that you would have to memorize and know that they exist in order for you to use them. There is a way for you to change the background color of the cell inside of radar screen, which is pretty cool. When I get the down count, I'm going to make this dark red. And then I'm just going to do an end here at the very begin. So there's no semicolon here. End else begin. I think that's the way that it works. I need a comma expected because set plot BG color. I don't have, I didn't specify the plot number. You do have to specify what plot number you want to set the color to. And it's going to be the plot number 1. Okay, so let me go ahead and take a look at my TradeStation. And here we go. So notice that all the ones that are negative are red, dark red, and all the ones that are positive are dark blue. Now, I still don't have the decimals removed is because some of the property changes that you do on indicators don't really kick in until you actually use the indicator again. So I'm going to remove the indicator column and I'm going to add it one more time. And that's when the properties kick in. So I'm going to add it again, and then there we go. Now we can see that it doesn't have decimal places. I see the negative values inside parentheses. I believe that's a preference of those properties if I remember well. So if you'd rather have negative, like the negative symbol instead of the parentheses, you can do that as well. But this is keeping track of our streaks and seeing which ones are, tracking on the high side and which ones are tracking on the low side. All right. Are there any questions? So let me go ahead and export this indicator because the concept here can be reutilized for any type of technical idea. So I don't have to work on different examples to show you the same thing. This is the core counter setup that you have to remember in order to keep track of how many times something has happened or how many bars ago something happened. If this counter only gets incremented or decremented when the conditions is true. Now let me open up the MACD indicator because that one is set up a little bit differently. Let's go ahead and let me go to the regular MACD. You can do this on your trade station as well. I'm just going to open up. This is the MACD indicator. There's a lot of code in here, but it's what I want to focus on is where the counter is. Here it is. Crossbars ago. This is the word that we saw when we used the column and radar screen, and it tells us, how long ago the MAC difference crossed above zero and below zero. So we have an OR condition, MACD greater than zero and MACDIV less than zero. So this is looking for that crossover. But notice that we're using the crossover event as the mechanism to reset the variable to zero. Otherwise, it just keeps on incrementing. So if you want to keep track of how long something has happened, then the counter has to be outside of the if-then statement because you're not incrementing based on a condition, you're incrementing on every single bar, and you want to keep track of that. And that's the syntax that the MACD uses. It has this counter that just keeps on adding and adding and adding every single bar, and then it's reset when the condition is true, as opposed to the one we wrote where the counters are incremented or decremented based on the condition being true, and when not, that's when resets. But the core setup, the core syntax of creating the counter is pretty much the same. Let me go ahead and export this indicator because I want to share it with everyone here in class. So I'm going to export the file right here in front of you. So we're looking at add MC streak. All right, and I'm going to call it the same here. I'm going to send it to Manolo so that he can upload it to our media server, and then he can provide everyone a link here. And in the meantime, if you have any questions about anything that we did today, please let me know right here in the chat and we can talk about it, okay? Let me just put it right here inside of my conversation with Manolo. Where are you, Manolo? Okay, right here. Okay. There we go. So I sent Manolo the ELD. If you want to share it the same way that you did the PDF right here in the chat, Manolo, I'm okay with that. Just make sure that you can download it. I think you were able to download the PDF once he shared it right here in the chat. I guess we can do the same right here in the chat for the ELD, but the ELD file that I just sent you, you can just save it to your computer, double click on it, and it'll import exactly this study that we talked about and that we wrote right here in class. Dean is asking, is there a masterclass or educational file on how to automate trades on radar screen. You know, Dean, one thing that we need to be aware of is that radar screen does not support strategies. Radar screen does have the ability to fire off orders though. So even though we cannot use the back testing technology or the optimization or the, all the things that we built into the software in strategy, testing, and automation, even though we cannot use that in radar screen, radar screen can have an indicator that fires off orders. If that's something that interests you, you can probably ask a question in the forums for resources on how to do that. I don't have any masterclass sessions that talk about that, because you also have to be careful about adding that type of indicator into radar screen. If I had, my radar screen open here where I have 100 symbols, and all of a sudden, I add an indicator that can fire off orders, I just have to be careful that all my 100 symbols could potentially, trade for me. So in a real time or in a real scenario, I just have to be careful and be aware of what the results could be. So that's one of the reasons why we don't have strategies for radar screen, but technically, yes, you can have an indicator that fires off orders from radar screen. So ask in the forums. There's plenty of discussions there about order entry and order execution, okay? And that's my class for today. A very simple example on how to count events, how to keep track of things that have happened, and use that information in your analysis as well. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the presentation. The indicator's right there in the chat. So if you have any questions, reach out to us. Our email address is education@tradestation.com. Again, a pleasure for me. Have a wonderful afternoon, and I hope to see everyone in one of my future classes. Thank you for being here. Have a great day. Bye-bye.